Hello plant people, how are you guys doing today? If you're new around here, my name is Ashley and I like to take science and apply it to all things plants, but today's video is a request from you guys. You guys wanted to know how exactly I preserve my carrots from the garden, so we're going to go over the different ways that I do it. I'm also going to give you some other ideas of ways that you can preserve carrots. Now you want to keep in mind, you don't want to follow what I'm doing if you don't like the taste, the texture, and the actual purpose for that carrot being stored that way. So I encourage you to take tidbits of what I'm giving you and then curate them into something that you're actually going to eat. It's an important part about preserving, and one of the mistakes I made for many years when I was preserving my vegetables was choosing things because that's what the internet told me to do, but then not using them because I didn't know how to cook with, say, pickled or frozen versions of that veg. So let's get into it. First we have to say hello to Ella, because she's gonna be sad that we're leaving the plant room after coming into it so quick. Okay, so these first methods I'm going to show you are for those of you that do not have cold storage and do not have room in the freezer. They are going to work wonderfully. The one that I'm not going to show you is pickled carrots. Pickled carrot texture is going to be crunchier, firmer, and pickled. It doesn't have to be dill or anything like that. You can do any pickled flavor, but they are going to be pickled. I didn't do any pickled carrots this year. I haven't done them in actually a few years now because I'm the only one that eats them. Bob does not like pickled anything, so I've just completely skipped that now at this point because it's just we're not using it, basically is what it comes down to. So the two methods that work great if you don't have refrigeration or cold storage are pressure canning and then fermenting. So let me show you. So this is a pressure canned version. You don't have to cut them fancy like this. I just found this cutter and used it. I'll put a link down below for it. So these are just simply pressure canned, very simple to do. There's no vinegar. There can be salt, there doesn't have to be salt. This is just canned in water. Now the texture of these is going to be softer, something similar to what would be frozen, but regardless, that's kind of one method. If you wanted to, you could do the same cuts and then freeze them. You want to do a pre-blanch. Some people don't blanch, but when you blanch, it does help kill off harmful bacteria. So you should be blanching before you freeze. I don't freeze my carrots because I don't have a ton of freezer room anyways. Hunting season is coming up and I know I'm gonna have a full freezer full of a deer here sooner rather than later. So I'm trying to get as much out of the freezer as possible, and so pressure canning is one way to get that done. This is very simple. Pop in the microwave and you're ready to go. So the second version is actually fermenting. 2-gallon crock in the cold room downstairs, but essentially it's literally just shredded carrots. You mix it in with some salt and you ferment it. I put some ginger in here too as a warming agent, as they like to call it. You don't have to do the ginger if you didn't want to. You could do spicy like a jalapeno or something as well, cayenne, whatever the case is. You would need a cold storage if you can't eat it or consume it within a certain period of time, and if you want to slow down fermentation and let it last longer, then you can place it in a fridge. One thing I will say though is you can fermented foods. The only thing that I do not know, and I cannot find out for the life of me, is whether or not the probiotics lasts through like the water bath canning process. Okay, so for the next two versions I'm going to show you, you will need a refrigerator or a cold room that's around 5 degrees Celsius. Either or would work, but you will need that. So first up is kombucha. So I do brew my own kombucha, and carrots is one way to do your second ferment. Again, I do ginger carrot, but regardless, you just shred them, put them in, and it'll flavor them, carbonate them, that sort of thing. So for second ferment, you can use carrot. The next way is actually with the bread bag. So I bought these bread bags off of Amazon. I think there's like 100 in a pack. So one method is you can just stick them inside of a bread bag with paper towel. The key is that this paper towel is wetted. If the paper towel dries out, you re-wet it. So you want it like a wrung out sponge. So if you squeeze it and water comes off, that's not ideal. You want it just to contain some moisture. I do uncleaned carrots because they tend to preserve a little bit better. And then I poke holes in the bag very, very tiny holes, not too many, or you can simply just leave like a little bit of the edge open depending on how full it is. But these have been in there since I harvested them. They're still rock solid. But the key is the bag with the semi-moist paper towels. The other one that you could use, those food preserver containers that are plastic with the baskets in them, they work. I don't care what anyone says. Those carrots that are in there right now, again, I've been in there since I harvested them. They're completely fine, good to go. And it's a combination of just being able to keep the humidity up and keep them cool. And that's where I put my washed carrots that I'm either going to cook with in the near future for raw eating and all that sort of stuff. And again, they do not go mushy or soft. They stay nice and firm, so they can be used for raw eats or carrot sticks, anything like that. And they can also be used in cooking. Okay, so this here is my way of storing carrots outside of a fridge, outside of canning, outside of fermenting, all that stuff. And it's in a Rubbermaid filled with sand. Now, the key here is you can only store carrots in this that have some girth to them. So they need to be pretty wide and thick, and then it allows for more moisture to be actually stored in the carrot. The smaller the carrot is, the less likely it is to preserve well. So you can see this one's smaller and it's actually kind of getting like a soft tip on it. Now what I like to do is I like to put my smaller carrots at the top and my biggest ones at the bottom to kind of, you know, make it so that I'm using the smaller ones quicker in hopes of them not shriveling up ideally, but these are still really hard. And what I do is I simply put them in the sand, and you need to layer them. So I don't have them touching and I have them buried in here. So I have a layer of carrot and then a layer of sand. And again, it's just enough that they're not touching. They don't have to have like a huge amount of space in between the two. They have to have a little bit though. So if we were to look at this inside of the container, they'd probably be sitting about that far apart. And you can actually see the roots growing on the bottom. So this is the key, and this is where people do this wrong all the time. The roots, you're treating it as though it's a perennial, and the place it's perennially overwintering is inside of this, right? So what you want to do is you want to water it and treat it like it's a plant that's gone dormant. So this sand in here gets watered. It doesn't get watered in the sense that I'm drenching it by any means, but I am keeping it moist at all times. If I was to grab it and squeeze it, I wouldn't want it to drip, but I'd want to feel moisture inside of my hands. Right now, I have a lot of dust coming off of my hand. That means it's actually time to water this container. You're gonna get roots on it, but this is the plant uptaking the water to keep it going, to keep it firm. And so because of that, it's able to keep a nice firm carrot. You may get some growth or greenery on top. You can just pull that off. It doesn't really matter too much. It's 5 degrees Celsius in here. You could go a little bit cooler if you wanted to. You could also go a little bit warmer. Just keep in mind you're going to get more root action, you're going to get more growth on top, and you just, again, you want to simply just remove that growth and trim them up as needed, but there's really no secret to this. That is it. Please forgive me. I'll give you a carrot in return. I'm just kidding, she doesn't like carrots.